Hello everyone, my name is Jarek Wilkiewicz. Welcome to YouTube Developers Live. We have an exciting show for you today. In the studio we have Sean Simister. How are you, Sean?
Hi, I'm great.
Sean works on Freebase and Freebase API. We'll tell you more about what Freebase have to do with YouTube, knowledge graph, semantic search, a lot of interesting new concepts. And then we also have Greg Schechter. How are you doing, Greg?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Good. Long time no see.
Yeah.
So first of all, I would like to welcome Greg to our team. Greg has recently switched from full-time engineering on YouTube to full-time developer relations. I think
I'm pretty excited for it.
If you guys have watched the previous appearance by Greg about HTML5, I think he liked it a little bit too much. He decided to make this a full-time job. Welcome. How has your first couple of weeks been going so far?
They've been very busy. There's a lot to learn and a lot to do. So
yeah, is it an adjustment? Do you feel like is it very different from what you were doing before?
I think it's a good transition. You know, it's a lot more. I'm focusing a lot more on reaching out to the developer community, and that's a lot of fun. So
cool. Well, very happy to have you, and welcome to the team. So let's talk a little bit about you, Sean. You've been at Google for how long?
I've been at Google now for a year and a half.
Okay, and you have been involved in the Freebase community for much longer than that, right?
Yeah, for 5 years now.
Oh, wow.
So I was a member of the Freebase community for 3 years before coming here. So a lot of experience in the Freebase community before.
So what got you into Freebase?
I was very interested in Wikipedia and in open data and a lot of those different areas. And when Freebase came out, it was the first one that had a really easy-to-use API for accessing that sort of structured data. So that was something that I really appreciated.
So maybe we should talk about what Freebase is. Like, what is it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Freebase is an open knowledge graph with information of over 23 million entities. So these are real-world entities, people, places, things. And like I said, there's an API for that, so developers can tap into that knowledge base.
So are entities represented, or are the relationships represented as well between these entities?
Yes, so it's not just the entities, but also the relationships between them. So we have information about people, but we also have information about the relationships between those people, whether they're married or whether they work together, that sort of thing.
So not only the hierarchy of the objects that are in the database, but also how they are linked together.
Exactly.
So that kind of reminds me of the knowledge graph, something that I have heard about recently. Is there a relationship between the knowledge graph and Freebase?
Yes, absolutely. So Freebase is one of the sources that Google uses to build its knowledge graph. And I think we have a video here to explain a little bit more about the knowledge graph.
Okay, let's take a look at the video.
Wouldn't it be amazing if Google could understand that the words that you use when you're doing a search, well, they aren't just words. They refer to real things in the world. That a building is a building, and an animal is an animal, and that they're not just random strings of characters. If we can understand that those words are talking about those real-world things, then we could do a better job of getting you just the content that you want off the web.
The way Google is trying to build information about real-world connections is by building a knowledge graph. The knowledge graph is about collecting information about objects in the real world. The object could be a person, could be a book, could be a movie, and many other types of things. For example, for a famous person, we collect relevant data about them, such as their date of birth or how tall they are. We can also connect that person to closely related objects in the knowledge graph.
Let's say you're interested in Renaissance painters, or how about how many women have won the Nobel Prize? By understanding the relationships between things, be it between painters in the Renaissance or women in the Nobel Prize, Google can do a better job of understanding what it is exactly you're searching for.
One of the first features we are going to introduce, which applies the knowledge graph, is a panel next to the web results.
When you have a question to answer, others may have come to Google already to search for the same thing. Google can jumpstart your research process by combining the information that others found useful with the information in the knowledge graph.
All of the collective human wisdom that comes through our search engine, what people are searching for, tells us what are the interesting things to put in our database.
Take Leonardo da Vinci. Let's say you wanted to learn about the most important Renaissance painters. You might search for Leonardo da Vinci because he's the only Renaissance painter you know about. Now, you'll see information right in the search results that helps you explore the broader topic of Renaissance painters. You'll see some of the most famous paintings from that era, like the Mona Lisa, and discover other painters of that time, like Michelangelo and Raphael.
We're in the early phases of moving from being an information engine to becoming a knowledge engine, and these enhancements are one step in that direction.
As we grow the knowledge graph and make it larger and richer, we're really excited at the opportunity we have to understand more of the user's queries, to understand more about the information that's out there on the web, and intelligently connect the two to each other.
Great. So looks like search already uses that information. And, thinking about Freebase, I was actually an artificial intelligence major in college. And I remember learning about the project to replicate common sense called psych.
Yes.
So is Freebase, is that the goal of Freebase? Like, what was the actual original goal, and where is it going?
So Freebase and psych are both knowledge bases about real-world things. They have a couple differences, though. Freebase is aiming to make it easy for developers to access these facts about real-world things, whereas psych is aiming to model common sense knowledge about the world and let AI researchers and developers program with that sort of intuitive real-world knowledge. So it's a little bit different in scope. Freebase is also built up by an open community, like I said before, so anyone can contribute. Psych was designed by PsyCorp, and they've designed most of the schema and the objects in their database.
I see. So sounds like Freebase has the objects, entities, the relationships, where Psych is also focused on the assertions based on the knowledge that they have accumulated in their system.
Yeah, there's a lot more rules in Psych.
I see. Cool.
So you mentioned that Freebase is open community and stuff, and people can contribute. What does that involve? How are they, contributing to it?
So it's very easy. It's a lot like the Wikipedia model, where anyone can jump in and contribute as little as one fact or as much as a whole domain of facts with all the schema and everything. So anyone with a Google account can register, can log into Freebase. They can go to any topic, any one of the 23 million topics in Freebase. They can add facts, they can change facts. It's like a wiki, so you can see a history of which facts have been changed. And then they can build their own schema, and there's a way that those schemas can get promoted so that they become common schema that everyone uses.
Very cool.
Nice. And, you were talking about the schema, relationships, entities. Now, this is an API show.
Yes.
So is there an API that I can use? And then additionally, I heard that you can actually get access to the raw data.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So Freebase is a big graph database. Everything is stored in the graph. So you can use our APIs to query all of those things, the schema, the topics, even the users, and all that sort of stuff. So we have free APIs that anyone can use to query the data. And we also, like you said, we have a complete data dump. So you can download every single fact in Freebase onto your own computer, do whatever you'd like with it. It's a Creative Commons attribution license. So as long as you give us a little credit, you can do anything you want with all this data.
Neat. So can you show us a couple of examples? How do you work with it? Let's see if we can switch to your laptop.
Yeah. Is that showing up there?
We good?
So this is one example of using Freebase data to organize a lot of content around topics. So this is a startup called Link TV, and they're doing news around real-world topics, and they've used Freebase to organize that. So you can see there's a lot of news about Lebanon and Syria right now, and if you click on Lebanon, that's going to take you to a topic page about Lebanon, and you can see they've pulled in some data here from Freebase, description and image, that sort of thing.
Is the image stored by Freebase as well?
Yes, it is. Yeah. and then they're able to show relevant videos around that, similar to I think what we're going to be talking about today.
Great. And then developer view. This is very nice, presentation of the data. Can you show us how does the developer interact with Freebase?
So there are a number of different ways. We have Search API, which lets you take keywords and enter those keywords into the Search API and get back a ranked list of results. So topics that we think closely match the keywords that you gave us. Then we have the Topic API, which is kind of the other side of the Search API, which is you give us a Freebase ID. So those ranked lists of search results before, each one will have a topic ID. But once you have the topic ID, you can pass that into the Freebase Topic API, and we'll give you back every fact that we know about that topic. And that's in real time. So if you go and edit Freebase, the Topic API is updated automatically. And then the last API that we have is called the MQL Mickle Read API. And that lets
Why is it called Mickle?
That's the MetaWeb query language.
All right, MetaWeb was the company that Google acquired.
Yeah, the original.
Which started the Freebase.
Yes. And so the Mickle query API lets you write more complicated structured queries. So you can ask it things like, give me a list of all the actresses who have acted or won awards for films which were adapted from books. And normally in a relational database, that would be a lot of joins.
Yeah.
But in a graph database, you're just kind of hopping through all these relationships.
Hence that knowledge graph.
Yeah, exactly. So we actually have this query editor here, which lets you write those queries in the Mickle query language. So you can see here, it's the query is just nested JSON objects, and you're specifying types and properties using Freebase schema. And all the null values that I have here are things that we want to get back from the API. So it's going to fill
like
in
a template-based approach.
Exactly, it's a template-based query language. So it's a little bit different if you're used to SQL type query languages, but it's very easy to learn. It's just plugging in all the Freebase schema, and then when you click Run, you get back this structured list of results. You can see everywhere where I had null, it's been filled in with values. So you can see Dakota Fanning won an award for War of the Worlds, which was a movie which was based on a book. And so all this information is available as JSON in your application. You can parse that out, do whatever you'd like with it. And you can actually just click up here. There's a link to Mickle Read. And this is the actual raw API request that you need to do to get that in your
So it's a RESTful API, you get back JSON, and then can you use the Google APIs to interact with that as well?
Yes. So the new Freebase APIs are all compatible with the Google API clients. So you can use those clients to parse.
So if I go to the developer console and select services, you will actually see Freebase.
You'll see Freebase
in the list.
Exactly.
Okay. Great. And right now it's open. Anybody can use it. You can just add it to your application.
Yeah, it's completely free. There's a quota of I believe is it 10,000 requests that you can make in a day. So pretty generous. And if you have needs where you need to do more than that, you can talk to us as well.
Okay, cool. All right. I know Greg has been hacking actually with Freebase API as well, and this is a YouTube API show. So Greg, tell us a little bit more about YouTube API, how that relates to Freebase. Maybe show us the example. I know Jeff, who is out on vacation, actually started working on this project a few weeks back. So this is the first public preview of what Jeff was able to achieve. But I know you've been looking into it, so tell us a little bit more.
So so I'm going to pull up this Topic Explorer, is what we called it, and it's it's basically just a way to sort of browse the Freebase stuff. And so if we pull it up on the computer here, I can log into it. Let's go with my personal account.
So what you're doing now is basically all flow.
And so this is using just like the Google standard authorization client libraries in JavaScript. And then it's going to fetch some information about me. It's got my username there. And now it shows me all this stuff, all these tags that sort of relate to me, and I really like how the first one happens to be about cats, because I guess I like my my cat videos a lot.
Now, are those YouTube tags or Freebase topics?
So these are Freebase topics that I guess are being pulled from information that it knows about me from my YouTube habits. What I like, what I watch, and things like that. So clearly I pay attention to cat videos and HTML5 stuff, and it looks like I watch like College Humor and other things like that. So if I do a simple search, I do like cats, so I'll keep with that. Now it pulls in a bunch of Freebase topics, and so I can see like, well, there's the organism, there's things like there's a football team here, cat eyes is an invention, there's all sorts of different things. So I'll pick one of these. I'll just go with like the feral cat. And when I click that, it goes and fetches a bunch of different YouTube entities. So we have channels. So there's one channel that's about feral cats, and we have a lot of different videos. And then from here, I can do things like I can play a video by just clicking on it. And this one's doesn't happen to be available. Let's see if this other one is. Good. So this is, it's just playing a video about from the Stray Cats, which happens to be a music group. And you know what? I like this video, so I can like it here. And so this is a very simple demo that just goes through and sort of uses a lot of these APIs. So I'm going to dive into the code.
So before you go there, just to recap, so the features that this application uses are universal search, right? Because when you typed in cats, we got not only videos but also channels. So this is something new in API v3. Then also, the actual search is no longer a keyword search, right? I think what is happening under the hood is we actually looking for topic. And then based on the topic, we do the lookup for YouTube videos or playlists or channels that relate to that specific topic, right? So this is kind of the linkage between the part that Sean was talking about and what the API v3 provides. So for those of you that are watching, this is kind of the major difference between what you could do in API v2, where you could do a keyword search, you could do a string search, and it was all good. But this is a little more powerful because you can actually search for concepts that have semantic meaning, and then you look up these concepts in Freebase, and then you query using the topic ID that Sean was describing. And then I think Greg is going to show us exactly how that is done in the code.
Yeah. So what I did is I took just pieces of the code that I thought were important for the API. So the first thing I have here is just a bunch of constants that we laid out, and I'm going to highlight the ones that I think are important. And so the top two there, that's for just doing Google JavaScript client requests, and that's what we're going to use to hit a lot of our YouTube calls. And at the bottom of the highlighted portion, you can see the service and the version. The service is YouTube, and the version is v3. And then I also have the Freebase URL in there, and that's what we're going to do to gather all the topics when we have a query. So the first thing that we did in that demo is we went to we did our topic search. I put in a query, I put in cats, and I got back a bunch of different topics. So the code to do that looks like this, and really the part that does the request is right here. It's a simple JSONP request, and this is using the AngularJS JavaScript library for this request here. So if you guys aren't familiar with it, look it up. But it's simple JSONP request, and we put in like our query, which was cats, with our API key and a couple other things. And so if I come to this page, you can see that request is going to go to a URL that's at the bottom there. And really, it's just that URL that I had in the constants plus our query for cats.
So this is the Freebase API.
This is the Freebase API
invocation.
This is the search API that I was talking about earlier.
Exactly.
Where you take keywords and get topics back.
And the result for that looks like what I have here on screen. And if I highlight the portion, really the cool part is the results here. And so I just pulled out like the top result, and it happens to be when you search for cat, the first thing is of course you get a cat, and that's an organism classification. And there's a couple other things there, and it has like a score, an ID, and an MID. And the MID is what we'll use later when we're actually going to do our YouTube topic search. So, so the next thing with YouTube for our v3 API, to do our requests, this is kind of a bigger chunk of code, but the things that are important here are this top line here, which is, it's just creating the path, which will take the YouTube service, which is just YouTube, and our API version, which is v3, and I'll send this to the Google API client JavaScript library with all these different options that we'll see when we're actually making these calls. So for the search one, for the universal search, like we were talking, it's very simple. It's just the service that we're using is search, like I mentioned, and the params, we have the topic ID, which is the MID from before, and we want to get the snippet back, which will provide us with the details about that video, and we also have a query in there that'll sort of limit it to the search term that we're putting in. And so the URL is at the bottom again. So now we have, with the Google APIs, and the most important things there are having YouTube, v3, and search, which is the service that we're using. And then it drops in the topic ID from before, and has, that we want our snippet with searching for cats and the key that we were using before.
So one before you move forward, one important thing to note is that to use the topic APIs, you actually have to do the lookup for the topic ID first with the Freebase API, and then you turn around and feed that into the YouTube API, right? It's not
Yes.
the cats term was not actually used with the YouTube API, but instead it was a topic ID retrieved from Freebase.
Right, so you can certainly just use cats with the YouTube API, but
Sure.
if you want to get more specific, you want to get your, in this case, looking for specifically the organism, then yeah, you'd have to do the Freebase search to get the topic ID first.
As opposed to the band, like in the
Right.
in the example you were showing us. Yeah.
And the response to that is pretty hefty, but the important part is the different items that you get. And so here I just have like the first result again, and we see that if you look at from the items, you look at ID and kind, you can see that it's a YouTube video and what the video ID is, and then the snippet portion sort of gives you some more details, and it tells you the channel ID that it's associated to, the title of it, funny cats in water, epic. That sounds like a blast, and gives you like descriptions and thumbnails, and so it's pretty simple to get all this. So hopefully you'll be able to, use these examples to sort of do your own requests.
Cool. Neat. Thank you for walking us through the demo.
No problem.
It's very, very exciting. I think one thing that we also have as a part of the YouTube API v3 that isn't actually captured by the demo is given a video or a channel, you can actually determine topics that are related to that video. So it's really the opposite. What we were showing here is search and then topics. Although under the hood, I think the original, I don't know, for those of you that were watching how when Greg logged in, he actually got a bunch of topics. So these were actually topics determined based on his YouTube activity. The reason why that was possible is because we went through the authenticated access with auth. By the way, Greg, was there anything in the results that surprised you about yourself?
Yeah, well, so
Cats that was not a shocker, was it?
Cats was not a shocker. I did see, like, I don't know, I pulled it up here now, and there, before there were a lot of references to like the Muppets and Kermit the Frog, which was a bit unusual. Although I love the Muppets.
Well, the machine thinks you like it, so it's
yeah.
right.
I mean, I definitely love watching those videos. So I didn't expect it to be so prominent when I did this.
Yeah, when I actually ran it for myself, I felt it was quite accurate. The types of things I typically watch on YouTube. But yeah, so the point is that you can also, based on channel and based on video, you can actually get the topics. So there's a part of the API response that includes the Freebase topics. Then you can actually pivot and look up information about these topics in Freebase and maybe find related concepts or related videos and so forth. So that's another part of the API that we have. The API is still in trusted tester, but we will be making some announcements hopefully reasonably soon around when we'll be able to make that available to the developer community. But topics is a key feature of the API v3, and so is universal search. I think these are a very nice feature that are features that are new in v3. Great. So let's see. Let's look in the moderator queue if we have any questions from people who are watching. There's one question that I think is relevant about YouTube and Google Developer Relations hiring. So, Greg, are we hiring?
Yes, of course. We're always looking for more people. So we got positions, for what I do, which is developer programs engineer, and positions for what you do, which is developer advocate. I don't think the differences are all that great. I mean, we still work with our developer community a lot. I'm still trying to figure out exactly where the line is drawn too. So
yeah. I think one of the differences is I think on the developer advocate side, we probably have to travel a little more than developer programs engineer folks like you or Jeff, who can actually stay in the zone for longer and produce some of these wonderful code examples that we were showing. Great, and then if you would like to learn more about these positions, they're on developers.google.com/jobs. I think these are all the questions that are relevant that we have in the moderator. So again, thank you very much, Sean. I'm really looking forward to playing more with Freebase. Greg, welcome.
It's good to be here.
Thanks for co-hosting, co-starring today. Looking forward to working with you going forward. And for those of you watching, thank you very much. Next week, we'll have an exciting show for you, as always, Wednesday, 10 a.m. Pacific.